I'm so honored to get to be here and in this beautiful historic city, and knowing that Jenny Sanford was with Nikki earlier today, and my husband, he wishes that he could be here. We find him tonight in Arizona, but Todd too, wishing his very best to Nikki, knowing what she's probably going through, kind of being the underdog, being the fighter, being the winner that she is, because Todd has kind of witnessed some of her story. We went through the same thing. You know, the John McCain ticket carried this great state in 2008, and you have a lot of right-thinking people here in this great part of the country. I was a little disappointed, though, that we didn't get to stop here and campaign. I think some people just kind of took it for granted that he'd carry the day here, and we missed out then on your friendly, patriotic, hard-working spirit, the spirit that is South Carolina, your gorgeous beaches and your awesome barbecue and your moonlight and magnolia charm. So I'm really glad that I get to be here today to visit. Now, I started the day, you know, bless your hearts, protesters. You keep doing what you're doing, because we have people like Mike and like my son in uniform protecting your right to protest. So keep it up. It's cool. It's fine. And stick around. Maybe you'll learn something. It's cool. So today, folks, I got to start the day in Washington, D.C., speaking to the Susan B. Anthony list, and talked about strong, pro-family, pro-life women candidates. And then I got to drop by the NRA annual meeting in North Carolina, where I was amongst a whole lot of friends who were proudly clinging to their guns and religion. It was fine. So I figured, yeah, let me swing by and give a shout out to a strong pro-family, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-development, conservative reformer, your next governor, Nikki Haley. I am proud to lend my support. Your homegrown gal, born and raised here in South Carolina. Our country really is at a crossroads, as Nikki was suggesting there. We're at a crossroads right now, and we have an out-of-touch government in Washington. And this government wants to tax and spend and borrow our way out of problems. And they hand us this $3.8 trillion federal budget and a nearly $1 trillion stimulus bill that didn't stimulate the economy. I don't know about you, but I didn't feel real stimulated knowing that $1 trillion is heading out the door. And then we get the $2.3 trillion European-style healthcare scheme, this takeover of 1/6 of our economy, Obamacare, which will not improve health care, and it will not lower costs, as finally the admittance is being revealed. And we get a national security policy that really seems kind of determined to poke our friends and allies in the eye and kind of coddle our enemies. It's a dangerous place to be. Meanwhile, the list of companies in the private sector and industries that government is crowding out and bailing out and taking over, it's continuing to grow, from financial institutions and banks and the automakers, and then healthcare and student loans. And now we're hearing of a new energy tax, and we're hearing of a value-added tax. All of these are job killers. All of these limit freedom and make us more beholden to our state and to our federal government. And this job-killing legislation is a grave concern for South Carolina, because here in South Carolina, you need the jobs. It's kind of like that billboard that the college kids put up the other day in another state is, "Mr. President, I need a frickin' job, period." You need jobs. But there is some good news. That's kind of the bad news, but there is some good news for your state, and her name is Nikki Haley. Nikki's story is that all-American success story. Her parents started that business from scratch, worked so hard, kind of having to start all over with nothing but work ethic and kind of this intense perseverance that so many of us need to emulate. They had that work ethic that we try to teach our children today. It is the American dream. And Nikki, at age 13, working as a bookkeeper for her family's business. Honest, hard work, that ingenuity, that entrepreneurship, that's what's built this country into the most exceptional nation on God's green earth. That is America. And that is Nikki's story. Nikki is a principled leader who knows how to incentivize the private sector to create jobs in South Carolina. And the lessons, no doubt, that she learned working with her family and for her family for all those years, they've stuck with her. She saw, as she said, how hard it is to make a dollar and how easy it is for government to take it. She learned that lesson, and she got elected to state office after beating an incumbent. She was fearless in that fight. And in office, she fearlessly protected the interests of taxpayers. Nikki had the backbone to vote against taking the Obama stimulus money. She has the conservative values that make her a strong defender of all of our freedoms, including the Second Amendment. And there's a story about her that really resonated with me. When lawmakers were passing nice retirement packages for themselves and doing so without publicly voting on this stuff, Nikki said, no way. She set out to reform that, ethical reform that's needed in all of our government branches. She had the guts to demand that every vote in the state legislature be made on the record. I don't know about you, but that doesn't seem like it's asking a whole lot for government to be transparent. Sometimes, though, politicians don't want voters to know how they're actually voting. Thanks to Nikki's fight for accountability in government, South Carolina taxpayers will soon know how all of your tax dollars are spent. And though she suffered the consequences when those in power tried to punish her for demanding accountability, stripping away some of her titles and power, authority that she had, but she did it because it was the right thing to do for all of you, South Carolina. Literally taking to heart that public service, serving the people in a lot of ways. I read about Nikki for so long and heard about her, and I thought, man, a lot of her story sounds so familiar. I was the mayor and city manager in Alaska, and what I did in my town was eliminate the personal property taxes and eliminate small business inventory taxes and reduce the mill levy every year in order to incentivize business to be in the town, just like she's talking about doing as governor. And then I decided to run for governor, even though we already had an incumbent Republican in office. The pundits said, as they do about Nikki, that, well, in my case, I was a big underdog. The establishment said I couldn't do it, and I didn't get a whole lot of help from the establishment, but that was okay. And the good old boys, too, they said, nah, no thanks. But I didn't care about what they thought. I cared about the people. I cared about the people as she does. I cared about fighting corruption in our political system and bringing fiscal responsibility to our state government. And the voters of our state ignored those pundits and the naysayers they ignored. In office, I vetoed some of those Obama stimulus funds, and as she did too, fighting. My efforts too were overridden by a Republican legislature because people want to believe that this is free money and that, somehow somebody's going to pay the piper someday, but we don't have to worry about it today. You know who's going to pay our bills for us? And this is immoral, it's unethical, it's not right. It's our children and our grandchildren will be paying the bills for us. Again, that is not right. That's generational theft. We are stealing from our children their opportunities. Nikki knows that, and that's why she fought those stimulus funds. So me too, Nikki, having been there, I know your story, I know what you're going through, and that's why I feel this kindred spirit to her too. I know what she's going through. Nikki Haley, in so many ways, kind of too, being considered the underdog, but she is a fighter and she's a winner. And some of the good old boys, well, maybe they don't like her too much, but it's because she stands up for what is right. She has that stiff spine, and she's doing it for you, South Carolina. She's doing it for you. She stands up for conservative principles, and she doesn't back down from a challenge. Nikki is the wife of a military man, and I love your posters over here that are talking about defense of our freedoms and our appreciation of our troops. And I thank you so much for your service, sir, and he will make a great first dude in South Carolina. Nikki, too, a volunteer in her Methodist church, and she's a mom, and she's a reformer, and she's a strong, common sense, constitutional conservative. That makes Nikki Haley our kind of gal, and I know that she's going to make your state so proud as you have her as your next governor. She is running for the right reasons, South Carolina. I thank you so much for letting me be here today and lending a little bit of support to my friend Nikki Haley. God bless you. You're doing the right things. You're doing the right things. God bless you, South Carolina. God bless America.